Hi guys, welcome to the Rooted Couch. I have Sydney Frank here with me today, and you can tell we are going casual.
Chill.
We decided that we were going to kick off our shoes and just sit here on the couch like honestly we normally do, and just kind of talk life. So I am so excited to have you here, Sydney. In fact, this is her couch. I think I've mentioned this before.
I love
that
this couch.
we stole out of her office.
Yes.
And now is going to be moving to your house.
It is. I'm moving Friday, so, or like whenever y'all see this, it would be some Friday. But yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to actually find a new couch because this couch is now going to Sydney's home.
Rooted couch
and I'll have to, maybe I'll take one from the parlor.
Oh, well.
It wouldn't really match the theme, though.
I feel like that'd be a lot going on.
I think that would be a lot of pattern.
Don't know where to look.
Anyway, as you know, Sydney is in charge of our worship ministry here, and she does a fabulous job. And most of you, if you guys have been at First Baptist for a while, actually may have met her as a littler child, because this was also the church that she grew up in for some part of your growing up time. And so we're just going to talk to Sydney just about her life and her call to ministry, and then just fun things like she has a new baby.
I do.
It's four-legged.
Oh gosh, I touched my mic.
And
yes,
so
it's four-legged.
We should probably
Lots
clarify that. So
up at night, have to feed her all the time.
So it's going to be great. But Sydney, thank you for being here. And
thank you for having me. And thank you, too, I mean, I'm sure all of you know this because you've been following with Rooted, but I mean, the platform that you've given just women in the church to share their stories and talk about what God is doing in their lives and have a voice in the middle of this chaos has been so encouraging and refreshing. Sorry, I keep touching my mic. Encouraging and refreshing to me to just sit and hear, you know, people that are walking through some of similar experiences and how they're doing it and walking in such wisdom. And you've been such a catalyst for that. And so I'm super grateful to just get to be a part and to sit in and listen. And so
that's all. I didn't even pay her to say that.
No, she didn't. No, that was impromptu.
Awesome.
It was the Lord. So,
but it has been so fun. It's just such a great way that we get to connect. And you know, we still have our social distancing pillow here. So we're still, you know, adhering to safety standards. But so tell us this, just a little bit of your growing up, your family, the people that you call mom and dad, sister and brother.
Love them.
And just kind of where they are now and what they're doing. And then we'll kind of get into Sydney as a young adult.
Oh, such a short period of time. So for those of you who don't know, my parents, Margie and Hickson Frank, my dad was on staff here for, I think about 9.5 or 10 years. So we
served as the education pastor, right?
Yep. I think he started as the young adult pastor, young adult / college, young careers, you know, whatever title they had. And then he ended up landing in the educational pastor position, which our near and dear Lewis Howard has now and does a fantastic job. But we got to sit and do ministry here for a while, or just watch our parents do ministry here for a long time. You know, and as fun as ministry is and also as hard as it can be, it was a sweet time for us to just sit and watch how it works, which we can get into in a minute. But I have a brother and a sister. I'm the oldest of 3, so I have a brother and a sister that are younger than me. My sister is 25 now, and she is in marketing in Austin, Texas, and she is just a cut above. I mean, I have such admiration for her and her walk with the Lord and how she loves people, and she walks in very deep convictions and walks in, you know, some black and white areas that I have learned so much from. She's unwavering, and I think that's one of the things that I admire most about her is that once she decides something, she always seeks the biblical truth and the wisdom from people around her, and once she figures out where she's going to land, I mean, there's no wavering. And so I just, you know, it's not always how I've lived my life, so it's kind of cool to get to see that. I have a brother. He is 21.
He's behind the camera.
He is behind the camera, and he has not paid me to say any of these things either, but I am such an admirer of his as well. He is at the University of Texas in Austin. Hook 'em horns.
This Aggie struggles with that.
I know.
We love you, Grayson, even though you bleed the wrong color.
I know. We've had to work through some of that in our friendship. No, but it's been cool because he's been going to UT for the past couple years, and I went to UT, so it's been fun to get to exchange stories. But he just dove into ministry from the first moment that he got there, and he's been doing Young Life and leading at the church that he goes to in Austin, and it's just been cool to see him just grow as a leader and grow, he walks deeply with the Lord too. I have siblings that just push me and challenge me in such incredible ways. So, but it's been fun to have him around in Wichita
And he's your
Falls.
roommate, right? For the
He
summer?
is. He is my roommate, and that has been such a learning experience. Because it's the first time we've lived together as adults.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's such a different dynamic because you come as two independent people into a dependent space or a cohabitating space, and so, you know, there was a lot that we've learned about each other, and we finally got into a groove where it's just so enjoyable now. And we have sibling date nights, and which sounds kind of weird, but we have sibling date nights, and we'll go get dinner from our favorite place and then watch a movie, and like, it's just been kind of fun to get him, especially in the weirdness of this season, to have him just as a friend and as just family. That's a safe space, and he has seen me cry, he has seen me laugh, he has seen, you know, hard days, good days, you know, so anyway, that's kind of my family in a nutshell.
And now where are your parents now?
They're in Austin as well. So my dad is a pastor at Hyde Park Baptist Church. So I guess everybody's in Austin except for me, which has been interesting.
Now.
I am. So when we went into shelter in place, like they'd post pictures, and I'm like, wait a second, I don't love that because I'm up here.
Wait a minute. Where's my chair at the table?
Exactly. And they'd be like, oh, we had so much fun today, and I'm like, don't forget about me. You know, even though I'm not there.
Yeah.
And they would never forget about me, but it was just, you know, the firstborn feeling left out.
Of course, because you're like, we really can't have a get together without me.
Exactly.
I mean, come on now.
Exactly.
Really. It's not really the family if I'm not there.
Yeah, exactly. Is it a party without me?
Exactly.
I don't know. So.
Okay, but we talked before we turned the cameras on. I never want to put anyone on the spot, but Sydney kind of just gave me carte blanche to ask whatever question, and so we really don't know how this is going to turn out. But growing up as a pastor's kid, it basically puts you in a fishbowl a little bit because you're growing up, I think being a pastor is a lifestyle job. It's not something that's 8 to 5.
Absolutely.
And I think people have preconceived notions of pastors' families, what they should say, what they shouldn't say, what they should wear, what they shouldn't wear, what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And it's always amazing to me how sometimes I feel like the things that are said to pastors and their families would never be said to another person.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place to be in. And so just kind of looking back, because how old were you when you were kind of in this at our church?
3rd through 11th grade.
Okay, so some pretty formative years.
Significant, absolutely.
Yeah, significant years going through, late elementary school and then in your junior high and high school.
Yeah.
How would you just we talk about maybe debunking a myth of ministry, but just, do you have anything, any wisdom to share, just an experience?
I think while we were, probably more of an experience, I learned, my parents did such a good job of letting us learn from their time in ministry, because there was a lot, within the home, there was so much freedom to be broken and find the grace of the Lord and the truth of the Lord, and all of these things that create a healthy spiritual home. But when you go to church anywhere, or when your parents are in ministry, you used a word that I thought was perfect, fishbowl, a little bit, because people are watching you, and people are watching how my parents are raising their kids, and they're ready to kind of, not even vindictively all the time, but they're just watching to see if what they do works, if what they do doesn't, and they always have opinions, and so my parents worked, they parented all of us very differently because we all had very different personalities. And so one thing that my parents always had to put truth to was I'm a huge people pleaser. And so, or I was, I found a lot of freedom in that as a young adult, but, growing up, I was always like, well, I need to make sure that I don't say this, or I do say this and I don't do this, and people don't. It was just, I was focused on the wrong things. And I think my parents always worked to debunk that a little bit in me, because they were like, who are you in Christ? And what is God saying to you? Not what is so-and-so saying that God should be saying to you.
Right.
And not what is so-and-so interpreting your life to be. Who are you walking with, and who are you living for, and who defines you? I think that was a huge conversation we always had to have, with me personally, was what are you going to let define you, and who are you going to let speak into those places? And I think in ministry you have so many voices speaking so many opinions, and some voices you trust to speak into some deep and darker places, and some harder seasons, and some that you just have to be like, I love you in Christ. but that's not your tight circle. And that was a huge thing I had to learn, that my mom and dad walked me through, is like, not, you love everyone, but you're not tight with everybody.
Right.
And that's not bad. And
Right.
I think I was always like, I have to be friends with everybody, and I have to like make sure everybody likes me and approves of what I'm doing. And it turned into such an action-based faith that it was no faith at all.
Right.
And I think that played out so much in my older years, is like, if I'm pleasing everyone but the Lord, then I'm doing it wrong, and I'm not even really doing it. And so I'm such a slave to other people, and there's no life in that, and there's no freedom in that. And I don't know if that even like hones in on a debunking.
No, I think that's so good,
much.
and I think that it kind of ties into, I think a lot of times when you're raised in a church, you can tend to have a legalistic view of things, and kind of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do everything the right way, or I'm going to do this because I want people to like me, or I don't want to embarrass my parents, or whatever that is, and it's not motivated from a heart of loving the Lord.
Yes.
And doing things that He's calling us to do. I know for me, growing up as a pastor's kid, I just did the stuff that was right because I'm a rule follower.
Yes.
But as far as really did it motivate my heart, was I like, Jesus, I want to honor you with my life?
Yeah.
No, that wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah.
And so then you kind of, for me, I just kind of went to college and did my own thing, and can't really say I had a real vibrant relationship with the Lord. And it was just hard times coming back and pressing into who is God, and what has He said about me?
Yes.
And what has He called me to do? And what is He asking me to do right now to walk with Him?
Yep. Because I think that's, and so many people blame, the parents in ministry. I think one thing I always, when I share my story, or when I share just on scripture or anything, I always go like, there are things as a young adult that I didn't necessarily listen to from my parents, that come back around, and I'm like, my mom said that when I was younger, or my dad walked me through this, and I remember then, and it kind of sticks, and I'm like, if only I'd listened, or whatever. But I think there was freedom to figure out who I was going to be in the Lord, and they worked really hard. And I love that your parents still spoke that truth,
because it did go in your head, whether you actually internalized it and walked it out right at the beginning.
Yes.
But they still were brave and said the hard stuff.
Hard things.
And I think that's an encouragement to parents, especially as you're parenting young adults, because those, your responsibility changes so much.
Oh my goodness,
when your kids are out of your house. And we're about to launch our first out of our house. And so just what that looks like as a parent, having more of a, we can't tell him what he can and cannot do.
Yeah, it definitely changes.
Yeah, but just as an advisor, in an advisory role, and it is one that's encouraging, but that's also speaking the hard stuff. And I know you've walked through things that your parents have been like, Sydney, what in the world? And you're like, got this.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, you're like, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe, exactly. You're like, trust me. And they're like, I don't think so. And then it comes around, and I'm like, don't trust me. You need to speak into me, please. Yeah, I was always the kid that needed to, like, you could tell me the stove was hot, and I always had to touch it, and I had to learn for myself. And then hopefully I never touched it again. I can't always guarantee that was the case, but a lot of times it was like, oh yeah, there's a reason they might be warning me against some of these things, because there is freedom in protection and in guardrails, which can speak to so many spiritual places and spiritual realms in life. But that was a huge lesson.
It's true. So Sydney and I had a really awesome time last summer. We got to go speak to all the high school girls about sex. And we opened up the floor, and we were like, ask us any question, and they did. And it was
they were brave. I was like,
they were brave, and there was a lot of brokenness, and a lot of heartache, and it was a lot of things that we really, wanted to address. But something we found out that is very different in the two of us is that Sydney, if you have a ledge, she is going to hang every appendage over that ledge just until she is about to fall.
Yep.
And I will stay 10 yards back from the ledge, because I'm afraid if there's a big wind, it may carry me over the ledge, because I'm so skinny and I just flow with the wind,
exactly.
right?
Just launch off.
But it's such a funny difference in just our bents.
Yes.
And I love that you said that your parents really parent you all differently. I think every kid has a different bent. I know my 3 boys, they're all boys, but they're very different. And so parenting that differently, not breaking their spirit, but at the same time encouraging the good things, and and having to snuff out and say the hard stuff for the bad stuff.
Yes, the fights that, I mean, I can only imagine how hard parenting is, especially watching, people walk through it, because you have to constantly be fighting for your child.
Yeah.
And when you're fighting for 3 different personalities at one time in 3 different seasons of life, I'm like, I am single and live alone, and I could barely take, I'm exhausted at the end of the day just taking care of myself. So I can only imagine fighting for someone's soul and for their faith and for their identity, because the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he's constantly going at your kids, and he's going at you, and he's going at your family and your marriage and whatever. And to be the steward of spiritual things in your home, I mean, and for your kids, my hat is off to all parents. That's a big job.
And I think God gives us the grace for that season. Mm-hmm. I think before you walk in parenthood, you could never imagine being able to do the things that you do as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
And not that none of us do it perfectly for sure, but the Lord always gives more grace.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a good thing. But now you said you lived alone, and we know Grayson's
living
right
with me, yes.
But you actually have a new baby.
I do, and
I'm
obsessed with her. I'm obsessed with her. She is biting right now, so
maybe
I'm not
we should
obsessed
first of all
that.
explain the baby situation.
Yes. So it was an impulse decision.
Big surprise for Sydney.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think things through. I think the important things through, but when it's a decision, you can,
like a lifelong pet.
Yes, like a lifelong pet. I don't need to think that through. But I was sitting in my house during shelter in place at one point, and I had hit a lonely moment, and I was like, well, I'm not lonely enough to necessarily get a roommate right now, but I am lonely enough to want some movement in the house. And so Mallory Royal and I went over to the Royals' house during shelter in place. I'm not supposed to do that, but
Your extended family.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. I went and we both started looking on Craigslist, which is sketchy, but we looked on Craigslist and we found these people that looked legit, and I messaged them, and they had
because if they look legit on Craigslist, that's definitely the thing.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It might have been a scam, but I was willing to risk it. I was like, so they had these 3 puppies, and they were all within the price range, and they were Australian Shepherds. And so,
and mini, right?
Mini.
They're not, yeah.
So she's only going to get to be about 25, 30 pounds, which is the perfect size for me. And so I fell in love with her, of course. And she looked like a rat, but I thought she was the cutest thing ever. And she opened her eyes, and she had blue eyes.
Mom,
I did. I was like, I can see why.
Beautiful.
Yes, I can see why. I always made fun of the people that were like, "This is my fur baby," but I get it kind of now. I don't say that. I would never, but it is. It makes sense when you're a single young adult to this is now yours. You are now in charge of this thing. And so her name is Gatsby, and she is 9 weeks old now, and Kayla Royal helped me pick out her cute collar, and so it has been a ride. And Grayson has helped me out a ton because she has needed to be let out at various times, and sometimes I can't get home, sometimes he can't. So we have been co-parenting my little fur baby. I know. I don't know what I'm going to do when he leaves, but
hopefully she'll have grown out of the have to go out all the time.
I think she's hitting about 3 hours without an accident. So hopefully we can.
Yeah. So all you new parents, you can remember.
Yeah.
You can feel like Sydney. She'll get up. She'll start singing. She's like, "I'm sorry, it's been a rough night.
I know.
I have to
I'm so
be up
tired.
with the baby."
Yeah, exactly. I have no plans, but yet I'm taking care of something, so you get tired.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But I have a newfound appreciation.
So in the biting stage, huh?
Yes, and she's playful. She's not being rough.
But puppy teeth are sharp.
So sharp,
They're
and
so
that's
sharp.
what you were so encouraging. You were like, they fall out. I'm like, I hope they fall out soon, because I am kind of over the nails and the teeth at the same time. You know? When she licks me, though, they're cute when they're young because they're not well behaved when they're young. So you fall in love with their cuteness.
That's so true.
And then they're not as cute when they're older, but they're well behaved. So yes, exactly. You've already fallen in love. Yep. So it's like, we'll keep you for a while. So
yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. I'm not even really that big of a dog person, but my kids did get me a Maltipoo a couple years ago, and it's a little girl because I have all boys at my house, and so they thought
you needed a girl.
Yeah, and I could dress her up. Well, she won't dress up.
You got the
one
girl
all of her
dog.
sweaters. Yeah. I'm like, really? But
I just wanted one girl.
We're very endeared to her.
Oh, so. It is. It's because I'm not I wouldn't say I love all dogs.
Yeah.
But yours, you love, and so I can only imagine when I have a kid. Yeah, I can only imagine.
I love all kids for sure, but I do.
But
love
you
my
love
kids.
yours, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So, what do you do?
Okay, so we're gonna ask some fun questions because I do want to just touch base with you on ministry and how you got here. But beforehand, because I love these answers, and I just think it shows the personality of Sydney. If you could eat dinner with anyone, who would you eat dinner with?
Should I say my real?
Yes,
okay.
say your real answer.
So I would love to have dinner with Marilyn Monroe. And I realize that some people are going to be like, oh, there's a second answer. There's a spiritual answer and then like a secular answer. But Marilyn Monroe would be my one. I just think her life was so fascinating. I think, you know, her upbringing, she had a lot of wounds and she had a lot of hurt in her life. And yet there was something about her that still, she was bright. And when people would be around her, they were drawn to her as just a person and a personality. Now I realize she was obviously not perfect. And she did, you know, she made some choices that maybe I would not make. But I have always loved her movies.
She fascinates
She
you.
was fascinating, and I've read, you know, autobiographies on her, or I guess which one's the one where she doesn't biographies. I've read biographies on her, and you know, conspiracy theories on how she died, and I just think her life there's so much mystery wrapped up in her life that I would just love to sit down with her and like just have a conversation and ask her, you know, where she landed really in all of the craziness and all of the conspiracies. So it's intriguing to me, and I love old movies. So she was such an iconic star in some of my favorites. So
yeah. I know you and Kathy Drake love to do movie nights.
I love
that.
Movie night with Kathy Drake.
So fun. You guys watch all kinds of fun old movies. Oh my gosh.
Jimmy Stewart was on my list that I might have said. You know, they're just all these old, incredible people that just lived interesting lives.
Yes. So fascinating.
So,
do you want to do your spiritual one, or we can move on?
Yeah, no, we can do my spiritual. No, I feel like I should balance the Marilyn Monroe thing out.
Like we all have a little bit of Marilyn, and we have
and we have Jesus. So there's like a line. So my spiritual one, she is alive. Her name is Brooke Ligertwood. I think her former name was Brooke Fraser, her maiden name, and she is actually the worship pastor for all of Hillsong Church, all the branches and all of the campuses across the world, which is really cool. And she is first of all, she is called to do what I am called to do, what the Lord has placed on my life. And she walks so deeply with the Lord. I mean, just knows scripture by heart. She studies him, she seeks him, and she just has such wisdom for someone so young. She's 36 or 37. And she just walks with such poise in the midst of a lot of chaos, because I can only imagine being on a metaphorical stage that
platform.
Big. I mean, yes, and people are watching her, and she's leading countless teams. And I think I
love
guys
and girls.
Of guys and girls.
Yeah, yes. Teams. It's a different demographic.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you know, obviously not everyone. You know, people have opinions on gender roles in the church and what that can look like, and what, you know, we might all land a little bit different places. You know, I know that is my calling, and so to be able to watch someone walk it out so well, that is quite literally in the same position as far as just gender, and she's a creative, and yet she has to operate in a leadership role, so that
structure.
Yes, and that demands structure. It demands attention to detail, and it demands you constantly have to be seeking the Lord in order to lead so many people in true, genuine worship experiences and lead a church. So that would be my spiritual one, is just to sit under her and just have her pour out wisdom and things that she's learned and things that haven't maybe gone well, and just to be able to learn from her. On that end. So
what a good role model.
Yeah, definitely two ends of the spectrum on my dinner dates.
I mean, but it might be a really interesting conversation to get all three of you together.
Honestly, I mean, I believe that if someone had shared Jesus with Marilyn Monroe, the power that she could have had. I mean, she's dead now. Oh, that makes me so sad. But I know, because I think her life is a life well wasted. We talk about that at home a lot. Is the potential, you can have all the potential in the world, and yet if you don't know Jesus, you know, it all kind of.
And what a sad thing to be said about your life when it's over.
I know.
A life well wasted.
I know. And that,
Well, let's talk just a little bit about, you know, the fact that when you first came here, I'm sure you never imagined that a few years later, this is, you know, our world would be in the place that it was, and we'd be in a shelter in place, and, you know, you'd be in the position that you're in, leading all contemporary worship.
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell us a little bit just about your call, because I think I really want you guys to see hear Sydney's heart for this. I'm so grateful that I get to sit often on this blue couch and talk to her just about her call to ministry, because I think as a woman with a call to ministry, you have a different perspective on things, and it changes a little bit, because a lot of people in ministry are guys. And so as a woman that's called to ministry, what does this look like? And I just love how Sydney articulates this. So just kind of share a little bit about what you feel like your call is.
Okay, so I always knew that I wanted to go into music. Just a little bit of a preface. Wanted to go into music. I thought for a long time that was going to be in the secular industry, as far as like theater and even movies and writing and all of these things. And the Lord continued to bring me back to just a very deeply rooted love for the local church and serving the local church body. And so when I started really praying through like what that looked like. Obviously, like I came to Christ a little later in life, and so what it looked like under Sydney's strength and Sydney's like unwisdom a little bit, and when I met the Lord, like what that call truly was. And I think to serve people is such a big task and a big just a big call.
It's a big responsibility.
It's a big responsibility.
It's a weight.
It is. It's a weight, and you carry it. With the Lord. You have that. With the Lord, you can do all things. Through Christ who strengthens me, and that is very, very true. However, you never really know what it looks like until you get into it. And I think I've learned so many things about caring for people's hearts and fostering a place in which people can come and safely worship the Lord, come and safely even just serve under you and learn under you, as I am learning under so many people above me. But I found such a deep call to worship ministry, specifically in creative ministry, because you see all throughout the Bible where worship, not just music worship, but just worship in general, is such a response to what the Lord is doing within the church body, within the city that you're in, within the season that you're existing in. And so to get to be a part of making or creating an environment for people to come and experience the presence of the Lord is such an honor. And it's I'm so humbled that would be the calling on my life, because people are trusting, and women. I mean, women are looking, because there's not as much representation for women in ministry, they are looking to the few women that they have as like to be catalysts for a safe place for them. And so that's why I love what you do. And I love getting to be a part in any way to help foster your ministry. I think with worship ministry specifically, especially with what I've gotten to do, which I never thought I'd get to do it, but when we hit COVID and everything, the Lord just kind of played things out in a different way.
He opened doors that I don't think any of us would have ever imagined.
Well, and that's when you get stuck, that's when the Lord starts to move. When you start to, because I think we have, not First Baptist, but just people in general, when it gets into when things are working,
right,
and you have ways things work.
Yeah, we get in ruts.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's comfortable. Why change it?
And there's no reason, right? And if it's working, there's no reason to really look at changing it if you have to prioritize other things. And so, obviously, that was not the case. And
right,
and which is kind of a part of my answer to the last question, but there's I think there's a thriving, at least for my personality, that comes in the middle of crazy seasons that are seasons of unknown and seasons of just an unrest and a kind of a kicking of dust, and seeing where it is all going to settle. It is all going to settle, because we get the chance to be a part of God moving and working and changing things. And I think even what the enemy meant for evil, God is turning it for good, because there's such a chance for us to serve people and to show the love of the Lord, right, outside of them just coming into the building.
Sure.
Us going out and being the hands and feet of the Lord. And so I'm not even sure I answered your initial why.
No, I think that's great. And it's because part of what I've done during this COVID stuff is I've monitored all of our social media platforms during worship services.
She's been such a huge help.
And so, but it's been so neat, because I'm just, of course, watching both with Dennis and with you, just how people, because when you're worshiping in your home, it's a very different experience. You don't have that corporate feel. People aren't singing around you. The music maybe is not, doesn't have that swelling that it does. But yet, over and over and over, we see comments from people saying, thank you for putting us in a mood of worship. Thank you for creating an atmosphere. And it's not something hokey. We're not doing some weird magical thing. Right. It's just setting a stage. Yeah. It's setting a place and a feeling to just let people really experience the Lord in a real, authentic, genuine way. And so it's been so interesting that even across a TV screen or across a computer monitor, however they're watching you, you are able to translate that worship experience to their homes and to their cars and on their phones. Yeah. And I mean, I think that, I'd love to say, Sydney, it's all you, but I mean, that's obviously,
praise God, right?
obviously God's grace and just just lavish love for you and your call to ministry. And I think just as a blessing for what you're doing, because it's been incredible to watch. If you were to go back or just to think through, what is something that roots you? What do you think what would you say?
When I looked at this question, my mind went a million. There's the typical like scripture, and which is all true answers.
Yes.
But I kept thinking like I have continued, especially in this season, and a version of this is always what roots me in all seasons. But in this season specifically, I have found so much comfort and rootedness. Is that even a word?
Sure.
I have felt so rooted. In the middle of my weaknesses, because I know that in my weaknesses, His power is made perfect. And Grayson and I actually talked about this a few days ago, because I kept going back to 2 Corinthians, where Paul talks about this. I read in the Message version, he calls it a handicap. And he said, I used to treat it as a handicap, but now it's a gift, because God gets to be so much more glorified in the middle of my brokenness. And I think, being in a performer and an achiever and a people pleaser, I so often try and make sure that things are done right and well. Right. And I think He has continued to bring me back to this place of just appreciating my weaknesses and being reminded that it's such a sweet thing to be broken before the Lord and to be still in His presence and know that He is God. And I think, part of that too is I get so excited because in the Bible, you rarely see, like in Proverbs 14, it talks about how, where there are no oxen, the stall is clean, but where there are healthy crops, there strong oxen are. And what I take from that is like life is messy. Yeah. But a productive life is going to be messy in order to be productive and to bear fruit and to bear strong crops. And I think, we're not called to just not live life. Right. We're called to live and to pursue and to grow and to learn. And I think that's where I just see the Lord, like in this season especially. I keep coming back to the season because it's been so relevant lately. Right. It's just it's been longer than we all anticipated. Yes. And so to be able to know that in the Bible you rarely see society stay the same when God calls us to new things. Right. And you rarely see God keep people in a season of comfort or social structured norms when He wants to move and when He wants to bring revival to the church. And I think that's such an exciting thing to be. It's unknown, and that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And so I tend to be a bit of an anomaly in the fact that I love change and I love new things. But the Lord, this is such a cool time to be watching the Lord work and to be leaning into what He has for us. And so it's just a cool time to just sit before the Lord and be like, I can't really do anything to help you with this. But I love that because then I know that the pressure's off. I just get to watch you work, and I get to watch you,
just be a vessel He pours out.
Yes. Thank you. I mean, really, here was the bush, and I was beating around it.
And I love that. And I think it just goes back to, and that just really stuck with me when you were talking about Marilyn Monroe, a life well wasted. And I think that's the difference in a life well wasted and a life well lived. Just if we really see ourselves as vessels that are poured out for the Lord, wherever that is, whatever season that is, and just being available to Him. So anyway, guys, I know you loved hanging out with Sydney. In fact, we could do this all day, which is why this is the longest rooted we've had.
I'm so sorry.
Poor Grace is like, are you ever going to be done?
Shut it down.
It's been so fun to have you here, Sydney. And
Thank you for having me.
Our church is so blessed by just the worship that you just your talents and how you use them for the Lord. Wow. So thank you for being available. And guys, when you see Sydney, make sure to have her show you a picture of her cute dog.
Yes,
Gatsby.
Please.
Super cute. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time on The Rooted Couch.